Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox back for another episode, and I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back Abby Filyaw and to welcome Lamar Davis. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
We're here to talk about a subject Abby raised the last time she was here, and I asked her to come back, and she graciously agreed to do so, and Lamar agreed to join us. And it's a difficult topic, but I think it's one that we really need to talk about, and that's shame and guilt. We are all three in recovery, so we have experienced it from that perspective. And Abby, I really wanted to start with you. What are, or how do you define shame and guilt, and how do they block or stop someone who's trying to recover?
Thank you. Thank you for being willing to talk about this really touchy subject. Shame has a lot to do with guilt. Guilt, I think, is a normal and healthy reaction to doing something that we're not proud of. In addiction, especially, we can lose trust with ourselves because as soon as we make ourselves a promise that day, we're not going to drink, we're not going to use. We know as soon as we make that promise to ourselves, that's precisely when we're going to be on the way to wherever we get our substances. So that creates an environment of guilt. I did something bad. And then the shame compounds, I think, over time. Every time you break a promise to yourself, you just feel more and more shame. And the disease of addiction loves shame. So for National Recovery Month, I am really grateful to be addressing this.
What is National Recovery Month, and when is it?
It is September. Every September, we celebrate recovery and we raise awareness. And I am happy to be loud and proud about my recovery, because when I can step out of my shame and talk about the joy of my recovery, hopefully it can set someone else free enough to share about it.
I never said I'm not going to drink or use today, so I never have any shame about that.
Oh, wow.
Now, I do have a lot of guilt about things I did in those days, and I still do. And I sobered up in AA, and so I went through the 12-step process. I'm a big believer in the 12-step process, and I did my amends. I've gotten everybody except my first wife, because I don't know her name now. But that's the process I used, where you don't apologize. You really try to make an amend, and you try to listen to the person who you have hurt and try to have empathy with what you have done to them. Is that a process you advocate, or do you have other steps, or how do you help someone think through that? Or is shame different, that you need a different process?
But that's a really good question. I think stigma has a lot to do with the harm that we cause to other people in addiction. It can be really difficult to come out of that shame and guilt to even start that conversation, maybe with old friends or loved ones who you're just not sure how to talk to yet. I think the 12 steps can be a really useful tool for somebody who doesn't really know where to start. It tells you, you know what I mean? Literally step by step. And then you have support from a sponsor. I think that's a great way. I did some amends too. And it's a really freeing experience. I think there's many ways to organically make amends when you are ready. But I think getting to the point in your recovery where it's safe to talk to somebody is probably the most important factor to consider. Is this person safe for me to talk to? Is it going to trigger my shame and guilt to the point where I might have a setback? And do I have the support needed to start talking to people and making things right? Because oftentimes we can make an amends to somebody and they're like, oh no, I'm the one that's sorry. You know what I mean? We can create these big stories in our heads that it's going to be some really scary event. So I think the more we can talk about what we've done directly to the people that maybe we caused harm to, we can demystify maybe that shame and reduce that guilt a little bit, because oftentimes it's much bigger in our heads than it was to them. And part of the recovery process is being honest and having quality relationships, which we're all humans. We all make mistakes in addiction, in recovery, not in addiction, not in recovery. You know what I mean? Humans have to have these kinds of hard conversations, but having the support necessary to not have a setback is, I think, the most crucial.
I also live in a business world where we say there are no difficult conversations. There are conversations about difficult topics. And I really think about that in the context of making amends for two reasons. One, you're absolutely spot on that there's a 12-step process, and that was not optional. You do the process. So I didn't have any choice. So that made it actually quite easier. But it also, the more I understood about the conversation I had to have, that it might be a difficult conversation or rather a conversation on a difficult topic, but I had a structure to do it with.
Right.
And it gave me that. Lamar, I'd like to turn to you. First of all, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We're going to go into your role in a little more detail in a subsequent podcast. But what are your thoughts on these twin topics of shame and guilt? And what Abby and I really wanted to try to accomplish, or at least communicate today, was not to let these feelings keep you from moving into recovery. You have any thoughts one way or the other?
Yeah, I do. I would describe shame as I am bad, and guilt is what I did was bad. I think sometimes they work together to prevent people from coming into recovery and staying into recovery and healing, right? In my own experience, my own lived experience, it prevented me from moving forward because I began to believe the narrative that I am bad. I'm shameful for what I did. Thank God I finally found a recovery program that allowed me to move past that and to realize that it's an experience. And I'm more than my experience. I'm more than what happened. I'm more than what I did. And with that kind of enlightenment, I'm doing okay today.
Good. I lost my mother on Good Friday. And one of the first things I thought was, I'm sorry I let you down, Mom. And I just thought, where did that come from? Why is that the first thing I thought of in this process? And I thought, let's just let it roll around in there and we'll see how it all shakes out. But I'm 68 and I'm still feeling that. And so it's not going to go away, but it's not going to stop me from moving forward and at least trying to live a sober life in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. How do you have that kind of conversation? The three of us obviously feel like we have accomplished something in our sobriety, but maybe for the newbie, how do you communicate it's going to get better?
I think demonstration, right? I think keeping an open line of communication and sharing victories and minimizing setbacks. The practice that I like is refuge recovery. And it's a similar approach. It's a Buddhist approach to recovery. And we emphasize doing inventories, not only what you did, but who you are innately good, right? And although was an experience, you are an innately good person and you will get back to that. You'll discover and uncover the muck that's covering your heart, right? And you get down to the original goodness. And with that aspect and with that view, it's easy to accentuate the positive. And I think that way it allows people to move past those difficult times.
You have shared on a prior podcast on this show a lot about what you went through. And so I have some sense of how you felt and how you were feeling. Are those things that you can share with a woman in recovery or a male newly in recovery as a way to help them see there is a path forward?
Absolutely. I am so grateful when I get to share my lived experience. That's what I like about peer support and the process of getting to know somebody. When I tell someone my lived experience, it just kind of relaxes them. They're like, oh, she gets it. I have been unhoused. I have been so far gone that I really didn't see a way forward. It really took a spiritual intervention to help me get on the right path. So my recovery is faith-based, but I get to support all pathways to recovery when I'm looking at someone and wherever they are in their recovery pathway. Maybe they're still really in their addiction. I've started doing my clinical internship for licensed chemical dependency counseling. So I'm seeing people at all different stages and getting to assess where they are and telling them, hey, it's okay if you don't know, you know what I mean, what your goals are right now. It's okay if you don't really even know where your next meal is coming from. We're here to support you getting those needs met and helping you learn to identify your own needs. I think addiction can really take that away, and it can lower self-esteem to the point where it's hard for someone to reach out that first time. But once they reach out for that first time, everything can change. And having just that one person in your corner, like a recovery coach, who can validate what you're going through because you've been through it too, can really make all the difference in the world.
You mentioned that September, I think you call it National Recovery Month. Let's talk about that. And what are you guys doing to celebrate that, to publicize that, and maybe use it as a way for 30 days to try to get the word out that there is another way?
So to raise awareness, to reduce shame, guilt, stigma, all the things, we have National Recovery Month, and it's about awareness. And we have something called the Big Texas Rally for Recovery. We're going to have one up here in the Hill Country. It was postponed because of the park and the flood. But San Antonio and Region 8, which is our region, we're going to have an event on September 27th, and it'll be at Los Patios. I believe it usually is. I'll double check that. But you can go to bigtexasrallyforrecovery.org. And we rally out loud and in public to celebrate the victory of recovery and help people come out of the shadows of their shame and their stigma. When they see other people happy and gathered and out loud with their recovery, I think it allows people to see, oh, it's okay. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to have the disease, first of all. It doesn't make anyone less of a person. It's a disease like any other disease. And I think celebrating our recovery is the best way to reduce shame and guilt, because we've come so far, really, as a recovery community, especially up here in Kerrville. We really have a very strong recovery community. And I think celebrating little victories is a big part of it. Identifying as a person,
Right.
thriving in sustained recovery from chaotic drug and alcohol use, using that person-centered, person-first language can really change how we think about ourselves. I am a person thriving in sustained recovery from chaotic drug and alcohol use. I am not necessarily identifying with my disease anymore. I am identifying with my recovery.
Right.
And those little words matter. Studies are everywhere online. I encourage people to look them up, because the words we use in our heads come out, and the words we use when we speak out loud to other people really can make an impact. So words matter.
Lauren, let me change the focus just a little bit.
Sure.
I'm a podcaster, and 2 or 3 months ago, I interviewed a guy about his podcast, and his podcast was basically Let Men Speak. And he brought men on his podcast and just let them talk about whatever they wanted to talk about. And it was clear that many of his guests, that was a new experience for them. They kept whatever buried inside of them. And while I'm listening to him, I was thinking the whole time, not once in AA have I ever thought that I can't speak. It is a safe place, and I've gone to meetings all over the world because I've traveled. But once I go inside that triangle, I feel like I'm with my brothers and sisters. And I've always felt safe to say anything there. Is the act to helping a man know he can talk about his feelings important in recovery?
Absolutely. 100%. I want to go back to that safe space in that meeting that lasts an hour and 30 minutes if you come get coffee and stay late. And far too often when men leave that safe space, they go back to their traditional places where they're afraid to actually get in touch with themselves and communicate honestly, genuinely, openly, right? And so it's not enough. What's made the difference in my recovery is community. When I came to Kerrville, I didn't know anyone. I met Abby and my life changed. I met Kerrville First United Methodist Church and my life changed because they embraced me in the community. They incorporated me, integrated me into the community. So I think that's really important. But for men, going back to stigma, we tend to find it difficult to talk about our true feelings. We tend to find it difficult to talk about, I'm weak, I'm afraid, I'm scared, I'm unsure of what's going to happen. And we have to break that stigma to allow genuineness and authenticity to come forward. And that's where the healing begins, I believe.
Abby, is there anything else, any other events coming up that we should talk about, or at least maybe hint at, that are going to happen later in the fall with you guys?
Sure. Thank you. We are closing out the Arcadia Lives Rise and Rebuild series. They have been doing events, I think, monthly in regards to the resiliency of our community. And so our Prevention Coalition is going to be doing an event on October 30th, and we'll have experts from mental health, spiritual health, physical health, and we're going to just come together and talk about the resources available and how to manage self-care in a community that's grieving and rebuilding.
Well, Abby, I wanted to thank you again for coming back. Lamar, I'm going to extend to you the same thing I send to Abby. Anytime you want to come back, I'd love to have you back. I love talking about recovery, and I want to share that message with as many people as we can. So I look forward to continuing this conversation with both of you all.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.